much knowledge and information as a law enforcement officer that he can take on the, the traffic woes that you have and the burglaries and the retail thefts and whatever the case might be. When you call, Jerry's working, he's there, and he's meant to be that community deputy for Celebration, almost exclusively. The only time that he's generally leaving that area is if we have like some sort of an alarm or something out on West 192 that he goes in security reasons. But also his sergeant, Heath Yeager's right here, and then we have Lieutenant Brad Butler over here standing up. And he's also a wealth of knowledge, and also I brought my attorney today, who was a former prosecutor for about 10 years at the the 9th District here in Osceola County. And he's prosecuted crimes from retail thefts all the way up to homicides.
But not a lot here, though.
Not Celebration.
Not much of Celebration. Let's be honest here, not a lot here.
But again, it's just an honor to serve. We're happy to answer any questions that you have. Jerry Wineland, as long as we can, my heart is to make sure that that deputy stays here exclusively for you all. It's not something that's coming from me or from anyone at my agency that we want to take Jerry out of Celebration. We love him being here. We know he's a great asset to Celebration. He's a great asset to the Sheriff's Office. And we appreciate him as much at the office as you do here in Celebration. So wherever he is, he's going to be a great fit. Yes, sir.
So Celebration funds Jerry?
Yes.
Correct. So I'm curious about whether any other communities in Osceola County fund a deputy like we do here.
They don't. Celebration is unique to do that, yes.
Okay, so let's say he was defunded somehow by Celebration.
Okay.
So I'm curious about then how your department allocates people on the beat, or however you want to. I mean, do they have territory to cover?
Yeah.
Or
yes, they do.
What?
They have a zone that they cover, and that Celebration is within the coordinates of a zone. So Jerry is working 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, whatever his schedule is. The other time of the day, you're not left with no one here.
Okay.
There are deputies that will patrol this zone, which is inside a zone.
So how large is this zone, and how many officers are assigned to this zone?
Well, it depends on the population. So there's, for instance, we have a zone out in St. Cloud, just to give you, for instance. It's hear that? So from St. Cloud, Yeehall Junction is 55 miles south. We have one deputy that works down there in a zone that covers about 850 square miles. But it's because of population.
So what is the zone, how large is the zone that Celebration is in?
Well, Celebration is its own little city.
Its own zone?
It is not its own zone.
Okay.
It is within a zone.
Okay.
Celebration falls within a zone.
And that zone is bounded by what?
Basically from Poinciana Boulevard up past the I-4. And that's the geographical location, over to 535 and over here, anything on this side of the north of 192.
And how many officers would be charged with patrolling at any one time that zone?
Ultimately, we'd like to have 7 deputies there.
Is that how many you have now?
Yes, it is.
Okay. 7 at one time?
When we don't have vacations or somebody calls in sick, it's called the human element.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So in effect, I love Jerry as well. And
yes, sir.
My family's been in town for 22 years.
Gotcha.
We watched the school be built from the ground up.
Yes, sir.
Stand up. And we are currently funding Jerry's salary, right?
You're partial of it, yes.
Partial.
All of it. The CDD is funding it. CDD and the ECDD is funding.
They're funding what? 90,000?
About $100,000.
So the CDD has a contract currently for $90,000, and it goes up 4% a year, which pays for part of Jerry's actual salary. It actually doesn't cover all of the salary and benefits that are actually paid out for Jerry. The sheriff's office picks up, this past year, it will be about $35,000 that we pick up.
So in effect, at some point, as the population in this general area grows, including the 6 to 9 million that are going to be coming.
Visitors. We're not allowed to include that in our population, just so you know.
Okay. They're coming, they're going to be driving rental cars, and they're going to be driving fast. Yes?
Well, they're people. How many people have received a ticket from Jerry for speeding in this room? Yeah, probably not enough. I'm sorry.
I grew up in a city with 30 million people, and I watched it grow from 64 to 72 to 898, etc. So I know what it takes to keep a city safe and keep a town population we have now to 30 million. I've watched Japan rebuild their infrastructure. They're building it now rebuilding for the fourth time. 64, 72, 98, now 2020 Olympics are going to be going to Tokyo again.
Okay.
So we need to kind of benchmark what they're doing, what they've done, how they've looked at things. Just watch like a 3-minute video clip, and it'll give you a lot of information and ideas to try to repaint them. We absolutely have to repaint all of the lines, the yellow, the white, all the dots, and kind of go from there. It'll only take a few minutes.
I'm not sure I follow you at that point. You lost me a little bit with the painting of the dots. You mean to redo the roads, or?
No, we need to repaint all of the paint that's not there anymore. Some of the paint is there now because they've been repainted already. Some of the paint.
I think that might have to do with a county question with one of our staff, but what I want to do and also make sure, because it's an open forum, and the reason why sometimes I do table forums is because I want to give everyone a chance to speak to us. But since we're doing it this way, we want to make sure that other people are able to answer questions and not just have one person ask all the questions. But what I'll do after is have a staff member speak to you about the lines, okay, repaving or painting. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi. I'm Annika. I work for Georgetown. I manage Georgetown and Celebration, the North Village condo community. I'm also a resident in Osceola County. The one thing between what the sheriff has said and what you have said that concerns me greatly is that with this great expansion within the county, I find it very troubling and worrying that yourself and your commissioners find that it is acceptable to cut out important bits of his budget that really, as a member of the county and who pays taxes here, actually wants to know that he's fully funded to have and support us, not just my community and Celebration and the folks that live here and make up the town, but all of us that are living in the county. And it really does, it's very, very worrying that yourself and your colleagues feel that it's acceptable that should happen. I'm interested to hear your answer to that, and when the county actually plans in increasing the budget, if not for this coming year.
Great question, and I'm glad you asked it, because that was asked of me also online. This is why I brought this. First and foremost, let me tell you a little bit about my background so that you know why safety and security is very important to me as well, not just as a mother, but as an Osceola County resident as well. I used to be a federal officer, so I know firsthand that it is very critical that officers need the tools and devices and funding they need to protect us as families and protect our communities. So personally, I can tell you that there's not one commissioner on the board that is going to tell you that safety and security is not important to them, because we all live in this county and all of us have families here, so it's very critical. The reason why I brought this, however, is because there was information going around saying that we defunded or took away funding from our sheriff's office, and that is not true. Osceola County actually has increased the sheriff's budget since he took office, both years. This past year, first year, right? And then this year as well. Can we do more? Do we want to do more? Of course we do. And we're always going to want to give more funding, not just to our sheriff, but also to our schools for our children to go to school, and to many other services that we do provide, such as our corrections, our animal services, our emergency management teams, and all our other constitutionals that require funding from the county. We hate to take any services away. We don't want to do that. We also don't want to raise taxes. So one of the things that we've been doing as a board is we say, do we add on more millage and raise your taxes, or can we move around some funding, and are we increasing funding due to property values? The answer is yes. We're increasing property values, as you guys all know, is increasing. When your property value increases, then we obviously get more tax from that. You add more tax from it. So it is not necessary always to raise your taxes. So that's what the board right now has been very conscious of doing. We've had several conversations. When we review our budget, so just so you know, I learned this as well just after I took office, is we actually review the budget almost all year, because we review it every 3 months. We're talking about it with the staff. We're seeing what cuts are we going to have to make. Do we have to increase our millage rate, and do we have to raise taxes? Do we have to charge you all more fees in order to provide the services we're currently providing? Do we raise more tourist tax? Do we add another penny to something else? Like, we're always looking at those things. I'm not a fan of adding fees or raising taxes. I'll be honest with you, I'm not. Because I like the county to be good stewards of the money that we're getting in. So I don't like to see wasteful spending. So I've been one, myself, personally, I can tell you that I've been trying my best to make sure, that I've been trying my best to make sure that when I'm sitting with staff, I'm reviewing every line item and that the money is going where of course, our constituents wants it to go. And one of it being safety and security, which is why we have raised the budget the past 2 years. And I think before that, I'm not sure if they have prior to that. And I can tell you, out of the dollar that we spent, there are state mandates, then of course money that's dedicated, and then our constitutionals need the money, and then of course our public safety, which is not just his budget, it includes corrections, animal services, and emergency management. So a lot of the dollar that you're contributing does go a lot to our safety and security components in the county. So I want you all to know very clearly that that is not our goal. As a matter of fact, after Sheriff Gibson took office, we talked about the cameras that would be great for officers to have. We talked about all these other things that I know he wants to implement that has wonderful ideas, and we're getting there. And one of the other things he talked about was the West Side Station. That wasn't even a conversation before he came in. I think you have a great sheriff that is not only demanding on the safety and security, but you do have me on there that understands that he needs the tools he needs to protect us. And I'm always trying my best to make sure that that's properly represented on the board. And so I want you all to know that. I want you guys to know that safety and security is very important to our board. And I think it shows it with the increases of budgets that we have been providing. And it's not just $1 million, we've been providing more than that these past 2 years. I think the sheriff could talk a little bit more about the increases.
Was there a question back here?
I just have, one last question
Yeah.
to you. Is that while you say, nobody wants to pay more tax, I get that, none of us do. It's like asking others to increase your HOA fees. Yet we all have to do it. To make your ends meet, your operational budget has to increase. And that's what happens, and hopefully, it's appreciated that you guys and you and your colleagues try to, not increase tax. However, as somebody who cannot vote in the county, because it doesn't allow me to, but have you tried a referendum actually asking everybody if we increased the sales tax by 0.5% that went to your first responders, not just to the sheriff's office, but incorporate all our first responders. That then incorporates the new people that are moving into the county, us that are already here, and plus all your visitors that are there.
Yeah,
how much money would that actually generate for the county as a whole?
It would be great if the people agreed to that. I can tell you that I did speak to.
It's just something to that, because some of your other counties and Seminole and what have you have done that to raise fees for their education and schools and what have you in the counties, and it's something else. In the last 12 years, I'm not aware of you having any of them, your predecessors or currently, having even looked at that.
Well, I have looked at it. I've actually spoken to citizens about it, and in my town halls, I've requested what are the priorities from each of the communities that live in District 1. I've also asked and spoke about fees, not just the millage rate, but I've also emphasized and spoke about stormwater fees that perhaps we're going to have to increase. And I can tell you that in all of those meetings, I was asked not to raise millage rates or charge stormwater fees.
But surely it's how you ask the question and how you present the question.
Of course, and I'm happy to ask it every single time. Like right here, let's do a poll right now. How many of you okay with me today if I request for next year for us to raise our millage rate? Raise your hand.
For what?
Our millage rate. To raise
For what?
Yes, that's a key.
Just raise.
Well, our millage rate goes to our ad valorem taxes. So it just goes in the
What are you
general
going to
fund.
use it for?
Commissioner, if you mind if I leave.
Oh, go ahead.
If I don't use this. So
Oh, go ahead.
one of the things I do want to say is that since coming in office, we have been trying to look forward because we do see the growth that is coming, and we've been asking the questions, what is it that we can do? And so we did research. We looked at Seminole County, Orange County, Brevard County, other counties, and see how they're funding public safety. One of the things that we do not have in this county that most counties have is a impact fee for growth that pays specifically for public safety. So this county right now has that for fire safety, but doesn't have it for law enforcement. So One of the things that we have talked to the county manager about, and I know that Commissioner Choudhry's been on that conversation as well, is having the county do a study to see if that is something that is feasible and that would work for the county. And so the sheriff has had conversations with the county manager on that. Obviously, we're open to that. One of the things that we believe strongly is that growth should pay for growth. It should not be on the backs of the people who are already here. And so the hope is that the county will look at that, and that will help us fund not only the West Office command post, but also any other future growth, such as adding more deputies to the road. One of the big things that we want to do is actually add more squads, which is your group of patrol deputies that actually do the patrols in the areas. So those are all the things that we are trying to do because we do see this growth, and we know that's going to be needed in this county, especially over on the West 1A2 corridor area.
And the other thing on growth that I think is important, can everybody hear me, or do we still need this? Oh, it's better, sorry. So the other thing on growth that I think is important, this past year also we've increased our new development, we've increased our credit, our mobility fees, which is the same thing as impact fees. So new development is now paying more on their impact fees than what they paid before. The other thing that was also increased was the school impact fees. That was also increased. So there are elements where the commission has looked at and said we've got to increase for these purposes as we grow. And let me tell you, I think it's important that if the majority of the citizens are okay with certain types of additions, like you said specifically what it's for, which I think is better, and they're okay with that, I'm okay with it. At the end of the day, I represent you guys. So the majority wants it, then that's what we'll do. But at the end, that needs to then be clarified and made sure that everybody's on the same page with that. Yes.
So I think it would be helpful, when the sheriff was speaking, he said Osceola County is the second fastest growing county in Florida and the 10th in the nation. I'm just wondering how much has his budget gone up? Is it in proportion to that kind of growth rate? I would suspect it's a whole lot less. So I think we're getting less than we were 5, 8 years ago. So yeah, I'm just trying to say if we're on a growth rate like that, but the budget only goes up like that, we're losing out.
So I would say, so the answer is yes, we're not growing as fast as the population grows. One of the problems that we specifically have in Osceola County is that when we talk about the number of deputies per population, we only talk about the citizens. We don't talk about all the people who are living in hotels, who are not registered. We're not talking about visitors who come. So all those visitors that come, well, they still need to feel safe. But those funding numbers are not based on that. The other part of the problem, which, and I want to say that, thankfully the county has worked with us, is this unfunded mandate that came down from the state in regards to SROs. So what it is that they got up and said, we're going to give, $400 million to school resource officers. Well, the fact is that the amount of money that the school district received to pay for all of the new deputies that we had to hire covered about 33% of the actual cost of those SROs. So what happened is that the increase in budget, which was around 7%, which is what we received this year in our budget, more than 50% of that was based solely on the SRO program because of the increases we need. Now, we all want the SROs in the schools. As someone who grew up here in Osceola County, I distinctly remember having SROs in the schools and the positive influence they had on me. So this is something from day one we've wanted. But what we had to do was working with the county. We cannot come in and say we need a 20% increase to our budget. It's not reasonable. For us to expect that from the county, they would have to cut road maintenance and other issues. And so we're going to be good stewards of the money and try to get some of that increase. And so we did ask for more deputies on the road. In fact, we asked for another 12 deputies for the road. And the long-term goal, and we have a 5-year plan where we've looked at this, is every year asking for more deputies. In the past, the number of deputies asked for each year was about 4, maybe 5. But what this commission has done is given us, I believe we got 10 last year, and we've got 12 this year, plus 33 deputies for the SROs. Yeah. So there are strides being made, but it's the type of thing that we can't expect for it to be solved overnight. But know that we are thinking about these issues. We are game planning long-term what it is that we need to do. When we came into office, we had 47 deputy openings. When I checked last week, I believe we were at 10. And that's with all of the deputies that we've been increasing. And so we are doing everything possible to be able to add deputies to the road. and to be doing everything that we need to be doing.
And again, that's 10 deputies that, keep in mind, these are deputies that are retiring, there's attrition that's going on, so we've hired almost 200 personnel in almost 2 years, not just deputies, but civilians and support as well. So it's a constant reflux of people coming and going, and to keep up with that is very demanding. But it's something that we're up for the challenge. We've initiated a great recruiting department. We've talked to our military leaders here in Central Florida. When people are being honorably discharged from the military, any branch of the service, and they have plans on returning to the Central Florida area, we're in contact with them, recruiting them. They serve their country. We give them first opportunity to continue serving right here in our community. And they're some of the best people that you can get. They already have duty, they have honor, they're reliable. And you know, what better person could we have to serve here locally than the people that were in the armed forces? So it's an honor to do that. It's never been done in the history of the Sheriff's Office, at least in Osceola County. So it's just thinking outside the box to try to get the best men and women here to represent and to take care of the citizens, because I'm one of those citizens. My son's 21, he drives. My daughter's 12, she goes to schools here. My wife is born and raised here in Osceola County. Although I wasn't, I'm a Buckeye like this woman over here, so. OH. Go ahead, sir.
I commend everything that you've been doing.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I understand that what's been explained is we have a shortage of recruits and how long it takes to become a deputy and be put on the road. But I don't understand the calculus of the fact that we're only based upon citizens. If we have hotel rooms and people are in them, that is a population of which needs to be protected.
And they are.
Safety, and that's what I'm confused now, is the fact that we're basing either a budget or a coverage zone or whatever on citizenship in the county and not what is physically present here. And that's what, I just need you to, if you could clarify that.
And please let me. So first off, I understand the plans. Mike knows this. I'm currently at the Hope Center, so I to corridor. And so when I'm talking about that is that in general, in law enforcement and in government, the numbers that you look at is your deputies per population. And so what we've had to do, because this didn't happen before, is we've been trying to educate the county as to, hey, you just can't look at the population numbers. You need to look at the population, including all the people who are visiting, because we need to make sure that we're protecting them as well. And so when we do talk about these numbers, that's what's got the conversation going. This is why in the 2 years that the sheriff has been in office on this budget, we've seen larger increases in the number of deputies that we've received budgeting for, because we've actually had that initial, hey, you guys have been told this, but we actually need to start considering all of these tourists, and that the number is not really a 2.4 or 2.6 ratio, it's actually more like a 1.5. And so we've had those discussions, and like I've said, working with the county, I mean, they understand it, and we're working towards that goal of getting those numbers up, and we are. We're actually increasing our numbers. You know, and again, and next year we're going to be asking for more deputies, and we've already started the conversation with the county, even before this last budget was put in place, that you know we're going to do these numbers this year, and 33 of them are for SROs. But know that next year we're going to be coming back for another 40 or 50 deputies, because we know the growth that is coming, and we know the need that is there. And that partly goes with, again, having that west office.
Not a substation.
Not a substation, office.
A west command.
You know, we plan on putting, right now, 150 personnel in that office. Now that's gonna include both patrol, that's gonna include CID, that's gonna include administration, and there's also gonna be lots of parts there, such as a space for our evidence unit and other things, because one of the things we want to do is make it as efficient as possible so that our deputies and detectives can get in there and out as fast as possible, so that they're in your neighborhoods and in your areas longer. Right now, if we have someone who has to go to jail, what are they going to do? They got to trek all the way across town and book them in Simpson. The plan for us is to have a small holding area for deputies, and then what we'll do is we'll collect 3, 4 of them.
Kind of like a paddy wagon.
Kind of like a paddy wagon, and then transport. So what does that mean? That means we got 3 more deputies who are back on the road patrolling, instead of having all 4 of them having to drive to Simpson Road and then sit at the jail and wait an hour and a half to 2 hours while we do the booking process. So when we talk about the future, all of these things are small little things that we're hoping add up to more efficiencies within the office.
And there was sorry, the gentleman over there was
I
waiting.
may get off subject here a little bit, but you're talking about trying to save money and budget money correctly. But why is there talk about spending $570,000 to resurface all of downtown when it's already been done?
I'm gonna actually go to my staff to answer that question. 1 second.
May I ask a question on the subject that we were talking about?
Do you want to stay on the same subject?
Well, basically, my question is, given the building that's going on around Osceola County, houses and stuff are growing up like mushrooms all over the place. Most of these areas were either pastures or agricultural or whatever, which were generating practically no benefit dollar-wise to the county. Now that they are turning into a real estate, which is going to end up paying real estate taxes, how will that positively affect the budget? Putting aside that, expenses are going to be there. Has that been
So that's
calculated?
two total different questions. Let's just finish with the first gentleman, then we'll go to your question. Okay, so just to be fair, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the initial question.
Was about the $600.
Hi, I'm Dave
Can you
Tomac.
hear him?
I know you, Dave.
Well, I know that, but not everybody. I gotta give the intro, right? Basically, we resurfaced the initial part of Celebration Avenue a couple of years ago.
2016.
When we did that, we got some complaints about the way we striped it. So what we did was we hired some folks, professional engineers, to look at how we striped it, how we could restripe it based on the character of the celebration area, still be safe. So we wouldn't be resurfacing. The intent is to look for other sources of funding. It's not going to compete with your resurfacing funds. We've got Celebration Boulevard scheduled, and we've got the rest of Celebration Avenue scheduled this year. That's your resurfacing dollars. That'll continue. We'll look for grants. There's grants for communities like Celebration, where you've got a special character that we've got to do some things with some medians and stuff to make it fit the character of the
Okay,
area.
so what you're saying is, you're not redoing it, you're gonna continue on from Waterside
Yes,
out
sir.
in Celebration Boulevard. So that $570,000 room that's going around that you're gonna redo on, you're gonna urbanize it, because a few people don't like the stripes, it's not true.
Well, yeah, so we're gonna be looking for grants to look at the striping, to look at some median treatments and things of that
Right.
nature.
So you're trying to put in bike lanes, now you're trying to shorten our lanes from 10 feet wide to 9 feet wide, and take away the left-hand turn signals, which are more likely, 3 times more likely to be rear-ended if without a left-hand turn lane. And you're trying to take all that away, so you can put in some bike lanes, so a family can be riding their child, riding with their child on that lane, have a truck or a bus, or the way some people drive through here, that child swerves out a little bit and gets hit, that's what you're trying to set up.
No, actually, we hired an engineering company.
Yeah, the
to look.
engineer that you hired, the rumors going around that he part of the company has got to resurface and redo that area.
No, that's not it at all. They're actually operational engineers, so
Right.
they're not the ones that come out and actually do
What
it.
about the research that was done years
Sir.
ago, saying that the way it's set up right now is the way it should be set up, and should not be changed in any way?
Okay, let him finish answering your question, because again, guys, we're doing it open, so there's like several people more that have questions, and it's not fair if we just answer all of yours,
Right.
okay? So let him finish, and then I
Well,
know
he's
that other
kinda
gentleman's
going around,
waiting.
and I understand that, but
Let-
he's going around. what we're
Okay,
trying
let
to
him
figure
finish
out.
with the question,
Well,
thank you.
yeah, I think what you're trying to get to though is, we're not taking resurfacing money for it. It will be safe.
Right.
Whatever we do will continue the character of Celebration. So it'll be both safe and continue the character. The other thing is once we actually find a funding source for the Celebration Avenue middle of downtown, we'll actually hold another workshop with the community and go over, make sure that everybody's still on board with that.
So we'll keep trying to have town halls. So just so everyone knows, I guess this is not working. Just so everyone knows, we do have I will continue to have town halls here, so this will not be the last opportunity on issues like that as they come about in the county, to definitely address it. And the other thing I do encourage is emails. if you ever have a question about such things like that, we've got Tony, that's the head of Department of Transportation here, Dave, as you all know, Dave Tomac, and we also have code enforcement, Tom's here. So please collect their business cards, and if you have specific questions, especially when it comes to rumors or what you hear, I think it's important that perhaps you go straight to the county and just ask those questions directly so that you could get an answer via email. And sometimes they're not so black and white because there's sometimes studies being done or something to that degree, and not necessarily that something is going to get done. I mean, that's just what I learned. Now, sir, you had said that what the impact is going to be with everyone that is developing here.
All over the place, actually.
Right,
East,
well-
west, north, south, all over.
Right,
But you're
well,
getting more real estate money.
right, and
more
that
real
is
estate
true.
tax.
So everyone that comes as pays like everybody else, you know. So everyone that, as they move in here, we're going to have more ad valorem tax. Yes, it is going to grow, just like Orlando did, for example, Orange County did. They're at like a $4 billion budget, and we're at a $1.2 billion budget. So yes, it's going to continue growing. I guess that's the good thing, right? As people do move in. Now, also that does pertain to all the when tourists do come and the money that they do spend in our county. Also does contribute, you know, in some ways. So, of course, growth in that perspective will help. And also your property values. If people do move in, you've got nice property, and this community is one of, I would say, is one of the best communities that when it comes to a person coming and feeling not only safe, but like in and walkability and all that stuff. So you have a great community. So I don't see the values going down instead going up. So that does help as well. So growth does bring other things like that. And it's just, you know, like any other.
Well, my question was actually with the increase in the positive side of the income. How is that going to be spent? Is that going to add another sheriff into celebration, for instance?
I'm trying, I would have to get you the answer to see what the percentage is on increase for the next coming year or what we're expecting it to be, because I don't know it off the top of my head. Do you know by any chance what the increase would be?
No.
With the growth pattern?
So, you know, each year it grows a certain percentage, which you need to realize also is that it depends upon what type of growth you have. So for instance, when it comes to public safety, you know, one of the things that we've been pushing is not having as many homes that are under $250,000 being built. I understand that we need affordable housing, and that's good, but when your average house doesn't cost that much, it actually is a drain actually on the public safety dollar. So for instance, I believe the county's done a study that says that any home that is built with a taxable value of less than $250,000 actually costs the county money when it comes to public safety. And so, although growth is great, there is an inherent cost to the growth that it takes. And so that's why it's important to have impact fees to help pay for that new growth that's coming. And I believe that this past year was an 8 or 9% increase in property values.
It was over 10.
Yeah,
Was it over
10% is what I was just told. Yeah, it's 10% evaluation for growth. So that's what we'll see. Okay, I know you patiently waited. Did you already ask a question?
I did.
You did. Could I ask someone else first before we go to the same? Go ahead.
Mr. Choudhry, Jeffrey Mount, I live here in Celebration.
Hi, Jeffrey.
I want to thank you particularly for hiring the engineers that you hired with Dave Tomek's leadership in doing the analysis on Celebration Avenue, because I think it is a correction to what went wrong a couple of years ago.
Right.
And it will apply to other streets. So that's a great move forward, and I appreciate you working with the CCDD on that. That's a really positive thing. Back on the subject of financing the public safety, is there any way to target the tourist dollars specifically rather than residents that already live here and actually pay a little extra for heightened security in our town? Is there any way to sort of get the dollars from the tourist zones? And I hope we don't do
It's okay.
That would be great.
Well, it would be great, and yes, it would be great because obviously everyone says, well, they're impacting us, right? Tourists are impacting us, obviously, with the growth. The issue is that tourist development taxes are collected for specific purposes. And it is by Florida statute that it is collected for that purpose and that purpose only, and it has to pertain to tourism developments and activities. And so the county has looked at different things and said, okay, well, if this is a proposal, can we use tax dollars for something? Can we? Now, I can tell you that a lot of our attractions and hotels that do collect these funds, they're okay with us when we're doing things that are going to be putting heads in beds, let's just say. That's the kind of the terminology that they use. And I'm actually in hospitality myself, so I collected tourist tax dollars. So I know it's not easy to collect them from tourists, but when it is collected, it's collected for a purpose. The tourists understand why they're paying it, and so do the collectors. And by the way, as a collector, I will tell you, this was before me and before I became a collector of those TDT funds. But the reason why that's even there is because the attractions and the hotels specifically put those taxes on themselves for the sole purpose of tourist development dollars to go into specific places, such as marketing the destination so that more people would come to stay in their hotels and things like that.
So nothing in security or safety or?
No, not at this time. Am I correct? Nothing's changed? Nothing has changed in legislation at this time about that.
So 0%, $0 from the tourists end up.
So
You
per
address the safety of the children in our town.
Sir, per Florida statute, please understand, this is not something that we have done.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, you guys could all get together, go to Tallahassee, that'd be a great fun bus trip. Okay, so let me go to somebody else.
So the potential of getting dollars from the tourist is through penny tax and
Tallahassee.
State legislation.
It's the state legislation.
Can you charge extra impact fees on?
Okay, so let me tell you what hotels, just to give you an example, okay, because I was a hoteler, so I can tell you this from experience. So I paid several taxes. It wasn't just one. It wasn't just tourist tax dollars that I had to collect from every tourist that came and stayed in the room. And it was for the sole purposes of tourist tax dollar issues, such as marketing and things like that. I also paid ad valorem tax, like everybody else in this room, for the property. I had to pay that. I also paid sales tax. I also paid the employee tax. I also had, so all the taxes, ad valorem taxes that you pay to go to your security, right? I paid for it too as a property owner. So, and I paid for it at my home as well, in Osceola County. So please understand, a lot of times people confuse, they think that hotels are just collecting that penny and that it should go to this or whatever. But they're also paying their ad valorem tax, like property owners, like anybody else. So that ad valorem tax goes towards safety, security, and other ad valorem, just like everyone else that pays it. So I just wanted to, just in case you didn't know that. But can you guys make a difference? Hey, numbers makes a difference. Just like I said, it's legislation. Okay, that gentleman was very patient back there. I want to get to you. Sorry.
It just seems to me that, in District 1, that most of the incremental revenue that is coming into the county is coming from District 1. So
I agree.
Margaritaville.
I agree.
Vacation Village.
I agree.
They don't have kids in schools. So we've got
I agree.
a massive amount of money coming in, new money, into Osceola County in District 1. And I guess my concern has been, and it sounds like maybe it's starting to change, but we have always been the last one to get something from the county. So we were the last one to get a library district. The police being way out in Poinciana Boulevard is just ridiculous. But we still have huge problems. I mean, I don't go to the mobile station on 192 because it's not safe. So, if you could fight for the fact that, listen, the money's coming in here. Margaritaville's bringing in a ton of money and a ton of problems. We need to get a lot more people out here on this side of the county. I definitely appreciate it. So I hear you talking about having this moving the office, which is good, but we need people on the street.
Well, and just moving the office isn't enough. You're right about that. And our contingency plan is to put people in place. And that was the meaning behind me going to Margaritaville. I just happened to meet with their board of directors who happened to have a meeting that day. It wasn't set up. I went unannounced. And I went in and addressed them as a group and told them that. I explained to them that out in that particular zone, at any particular time of the day, because of the activity that we have out there, you have basically 2 or 3 deputies during the day, and 2 or 3 deputies at night, just from that little quadrant of the county. However, with that many tourists coming into Margaritaville, we were going to require probably 20 to 25 deputies around the clock, 24/7, 365. And did they think that 2 or 3 deputies out there with all the tourists that they're going to have, would that be enough? Their mouths hit the floor. Why? Because they left the most important partner that they have out of the equation when they're making their plans, and that is their law enforcement agency. And I explained to them under no uncertain terms that if we had another tragic terrorist attack like we had at the Pulse, which is right in our backyard, happen here at their Margaritaville, they're out of business.
Yes.
They're out of business. And again, they were stifled and dumbfounded by simple common sense and logic. And that's what I brought to them. And I asked them to stand with me, stand behind me, not just when we meet with Commissioner Choudhry. Commissioner Choudhry represents you in District 1, 100%. But there's 4 other districts, and one of the things that I've met with those county commissioners on an individual basis and explained to them that even though they're in District 2, 3, 4, and 5, decisions that they make affect the entire county, not just their district. And so in order to get something passed through that, you guys know, I'm preaching to the choir, I'm sure, 3 votes you need to get something done. And that's where.
And again, I think all of you have been involved in boards, you know exactly how boards work. I am fighting every day for District 1, fighting the fact that we're always being forgotten. That's why I was running for office. The fact that we're not getting assistance like we should. The fact that we are one of the biggest tax base for the entire county, and it should come back to our district, to all our communities in the district that contribute to it and that suffer through it. Because I'm in traffic every day, just like all of us, and I see things every day, just like all of you. So trust that I am. But as our good sheriff said, you know, I've got to. There's a board. And 3 votes count on those boards. It's very critical that I get more participation sometimes also from my district residents, if you could help me, because sometimes hearing it from me over and over, sometimes it's one ear out the other. But you know what? From all of us working together is what things can potentially get done. But rest assured that slowly it's been almost 2 years in November, and you could already see the changes. So I do want to thank my board for at least us doing somewhat of the changes, and we're moving in the up pattern, you know, uphill battle, but we're moving up there. And our sheriff has done a great job and, you know, lobbying and speaking for our district. So I want you guys to know that you've got a great team here. We're trying our best to do it, and you've got an awesome sheriff when it comes to safety and security. It's just going to take a little while to get there, which, by the way, I myself don't have patience for. I'm learning I have to have it, especially with politics, but I'm trying to get there faster. I know you had one more question, right?
Just to follow up, is Margaritaville going to have to pay for their own deputies the way we have to pay for our own?
If they want deputies on their property, they're going to have to
They
pay.
will. Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yes,
We
sir.
will make sure of that. This gentleman's been waiting. Let me just go to him. Then I'll go
Just a
to
couple comments. Tax office licensing.
Yes, great. I wanted to bring that up.
I just went 3 day trips to get to
I know. It does take 3 day trips. You're so right. I have to go there, and it's dreading.
We're older. The other comment is, we gave our email addresses out front.
Yes, sir.
Can you send me email? Can you send out an email address for each of these individuals?
Oh, the contact information?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's online too.
And it's also online, but I'll send it, if you want to put a star on your name, I'm happy, or to anyone else. Ann is right there, my assistant, she could make sure.
Last wise comment. Polls on Osceola Parkway?
They have been here forever.
That's been there before us.
From a layman's point of view, because I don't have anything to do with that,
Me
the
neither.
more red lights and communities that are built on there, the more they should take the booth out of there. Again,
That's
common
something
sense
I'm
is
happy to
logic on
fight
my
with
part.
all of you guys to go back to the county, because I wasn't there when that was implemented. But, and by the way, on your comment with tax collector, actually, these are conversations I had with the sheriff. I said, hey, when you have your office there, can we talk about putting sub-offices of the supervisor of election, of tax, you know? So we're talking every single day with the different, with the sheriff, and also with the tax collector and with the supervisor of election, trying to see how could we have more things done here, including another voting area that we're going to need here and stuff like that. So, and another school for the kids. I mean, we have a lot of growth in this, as we grow with the tourism in our district, because we're very unique with that. We're also growing with the residents because they love it so much and they come, right? And how do you tell mom and dad, you can't move here? You know, you don't really do that. So we're trying to move forward in that direction. But rest assured that we've been arguing that matter also with the tax collector and all that. And actually, there is a building that was just approved this year that is a little, it's not actually 2 ways from here, but it is in District 1, where we're going to have a new tax collector office. It's going to be on Point Siena, like towards Tampa, we're in Tampa Avenue, towards Intercession City area, which was also lacking lots of different services and stuff. So rest assured, I'm looking specifically at all this, but I welcome anyone to definitely come and join me in my citizens committee to help me fight some of these battles. And I told you next, go ahead.
I believe in the past, the development district has also supplemented some of the sheriff presence for Halloween. And if I heard correctly this morning in another meeting, I think I learned that won't be the case this year.
We'll have extra deputies, as many as we can put out here, and we're also going to be covering your intersections too.
Okay.
I think that was one of the major concerns was the crossing of the streets and so forth. And I know we'll get inundated with trick-or-treaters because you give out good candy.
Because you give out great candy. Stop giving out those big bars. No, just kidding.
No, but absolutely. We're going to do our very best. We will have extra patrol inside of Celebration, and again, we're going to have all your intersections covered as well. So that's something that, and I'm going to apologize to you now before I cut you off. I do have to run to another meeting, guys, and but I'm happy to come to any meeting that you have. This isn't the one time that you get to meet with me, talk with me, ask me questions, whatnot. You can do that anytime at any one of your meetings, and I make myself available to you. I'm here to serve you. I can tell you that we have a great organization. You have a great organization at the Osceola Sheriff's Office because it belongs to you. It doesn't belong to me. It's your office. I'm doing everything that past almost 2 years that I've been the sheriff, but for the past 12 years that I've also worked at the office but hadn't seen any growth, really, to speak of. But the county's been growing out of bounds. And so what we're tasked with and doing is understanding that growth and then now chasing our tails a little bit, but we're going to catch it. And we're going to catch that tail, and we're going to get that agency up to par, and we are. We're making tremendous leaps and bounds and tremendous strides to make sure that we have coverage. All of the West Side corridor, and for the population that we have, we're moving up to that. The 12 new deputies that we've been approved for, besides the 33 SROs, are going to be basically here on the West Side corridor and down in Sector 3, which is Campbell City, Intercession City, which at a moment's notice, they get that call. Believe me, those troops are coming up here too. So it doesn't matter what boat we got here on. I guess Martin Luther King has said that, and it sticks to me very closely. We're all in the same boat now. And that's to make sure that you're safe, you're secure. You have dedicated men and women at the Osceola Sheriff's Office who fight crime day in and day out, and they do a tremendous job. Why? Because their hearts are in it, and they're in it for the right reason. They're not there to get rich, although they would love that. You know, but they're there to make a difference in the community that they serve, and they're doing that. And that's what we're committed to doing. I'm going to leave you in good hands, though, with Lieutenant Butler, with Sergeant Yeager, and of course, you all know Jerry, and also
Jerry.
Warren. Step of the way. So these are questions that, if you have, that he'll be able to answer in my stead. And again, I'm happy to meet with you anytime. I'll be back out here tomorrow night for the Yorktown.
Correct.
So I may be flying in on helicopter because the traffic's so bad. No, but I have 3 places that I have to go to, and but this is one of my stops here. So if you have a moment to come out to the National Night Out over there tomorrow, come on by and chat with me. I'd love to see you. And if you're over by the office, the main office, stop in and take a tour. It's your office. See how things are run. We have the most. People come from Orlando, they come from Orange County, and they think that we're easy pickings. And I'm telling you, they get caught because of the men and women that we have employed at the Osceola County Sheriff's Office. And we use every technique that we possibly can. Modern technology is our friend at the Sheriff's Office. We have trained the Florida Department of Law Enforcement forensics technicians on how to collect evidence, that's touch DNA evidence, how to actually look at it and see what's valuable and what's not. That is from your forensics team here at the Osceola Sheriff's Office. So we use everything that we possibly can to make sure that we make people accountable when they commit a crime down here. And I know that some of these thugs have said to their compadres, because it's recorded, we should not have come to Osceola County. I told you. Because that's the dedication the men and women here have. I'm so proud to be a part of the Osceola Sheriff's Office since 1986. And I'm proud to serve as your sheriff here. Again, Mistakes will happen here and there, but as a whole, we'll learn from those. They'll be minimal at best, and we're gonna move on as a whole. And as a group, we're only gonna get better, we're only gonna get stronger. And as a community, there's nothing that we can't do. So I want you all to have a good night, and I gotta run, I apologize.
Let's give a round of applause for the sheriff. That's one dedicated sheriff we have. Thanks so much. So as the sheriff leaves, if there's any other questions for the sheriff's department, then there are more here. But did you ask a question yet? Not yet.
No,
Okay.
the question I have is, what is the metrics used for the crime rate and the detective solve rate? I mean, has it increased? Has it
That's
gotten,
definitely
has it increased? Has it gotten better? Has it years?
Super complicated question that I certainly can't answer in a 30-second. So it's all based on problem is I don't know what those numbers are just because I didn't know that was going to be a question. It was other stuff. So what I will do is make sure that I get your contact info, anything you want to ask, and get you answered. Okay?
I can tell you that our robbery unit, which is based out of our west office, they're usually in the 90% solve rate for robberies in this area. That's for the entire.
Well, yeah, and I will tell you, so I spent 10 years here in Osceola County prosecuting cases, and the robbery unit here is amazing. Most of the stuff that we had wasn't in Celebration. It's literally along 192, and then out by the, out west towards the border, that gets hit a lot. And it was amazing how many cases we would get and just how many solved. I mean, it was phenomenal the work they did, and the sheriff talked about some of the technology that we've used, and they are always on the forefront of using that. And you know, the thing nowadays is cell phones and video cameras, and one of the nice things about our department here is that we are very good with cell phone technology. And I just, you know, it's made law enforcement a lot easier when it comes to, you know, having GPS and being tracked.
Did you come? Go ahead. Yeah.
On the light part, I'm talking to the gentleman up there about being safe, going back and forth and going, actually, they go to the old station. As a resident, and a lot of residents are here that travel these roads, I drive in and out all the time. I'm retired. I don't feel safe there on these roads. How many times I have come to a stop sign and people roll through the stop sign that don't even that happens every single day. We have the same thing with bicyclists. The bicyclists do not know the rules of the road. They're on the road with you 3 times this week on the right-hand side. A bicyclist comes up beside me, doesn't stop at the stop sign. I'm making the right-hand turn. Who's at fault if I hit him?
I don't know.
I'm just saying, these are the things.
Jerry? Jerry?
And on it goes. I mean, not only that, I mean, you can't park. I've had this conversation with Jerry. The intersection. You can't block the road. You can't be in a crosswalk. You can't park the wrong way. Where do these people come from? They have rules and regulations.
I have a kind of a theory on that.
Go ahead, let's hear that, Jerry. Go ahead.
You gotta enforce it. I don't care.
This part of Central Florida is the highest rental car place in the world. I have a huge problem with Avis and Budget and all these other companies. Somebody stepping off the plane from God only knows what country, and I go, welcome to Orlando, here's your rental car. We are giving them a 3,000-pound missile because they have a credit card to pay for that. They don't know the rules of the road and their country, let alone coming into our country. That's something that I think we should work on, get with your state legislators, and work out a way that we can give them maybe a basic rules of the road test before they pick up their rental car. You remember back in the old days, they'd come out to your car and show you where the turn signals are. Anybody rented a car lately? They say it's on before, go pick it up. very unique to this area. You know, and that's not counting the residents, and I will get you at one point in time. So again, you know, you're your own worst enemy. If you want me to zero tolerance on traffic stops, well, I'm gonna have you coming out of the parking lot tonight. So, you know, and for that, I'm not making excuses, and I'll make jokes, but I'm somewhat lenient when I have to be on traffic. There's a state law that allows us discretion. Everybody doesn't have to get a ticket. The sheriff can't tell me to write everybody a ticket either. That's tough. Based on the violation, you might get a warning. Warnings in our county, that puts your name and your vehicle both in my system. If I stop you a second time, you're getting a ticket, I'll guarantee it. No sob stories, because you already been warned. And that's kind of my theory on it. If you do something so egregious right from the get-go, you're getting a ticket right from the start. Believe me, you will. Okay, I have no problem.
I believe you. I think you gave me a ticket a few years ago.
I'll look that up in the system.
And you're right, you know, with tourists do come other issues like this. And I think it also happens, Joe, in other tourism areas, like in Miami and Vegas, you know, maybe not as much. I don't know the ratio or anything, but I think when you're dealing, obviously, with tourists, they don't really understand all the rules, regulations, maybe not even speak the language, not understand the stop sign. So, but it is not great. It's bad, of course, but that unfortunately comes with the territory of living in a tourism area. Let me get to someone who has not asked a question. Go ahead.
Commissioner Choudhry and your staff, first, thank you very much for coming, and thank you for this structure. Even though it's a little chaotic, it works well.
Yeah.
Two comments. We're building an athletic complex here. Hopefully a change to the ordinance is going through, and we're looking at some reimbursement dollars, so we'd love a comment on that if we could. And my second comment is, how does the approval process for something like Margaritaville happen? Why wouldn't we deal with 28 cops and having them pay for something while we're giving them the approval rather than on the tail end of the process?
Great questions. So the first question, is that about the contract that's currently working out with the county commission, but that has nothing to do with the community center? Like I'm kind of, okay, because
It's the
I'm not
athletic fields, but it's the reimbursement for the athletic complex fields.
Do we know where we are with that?
Yeah,
And a lot of people care about it, that's why I'm asking.
okay, so that's a two-step process. First is an ordinance that takes away the requirement that we have to own the property to use our money. So that's already been drafted. That's going through the process, and we should have that adopted over the holidays. The second thing would be an agreement with if I get the name wrong, forgive me, because I think there's like 5 in here, CROA. Is it? So we have to have an agreement. We'll be negotiating an agreement with CROA to then be able to distribute the funds for the fields.
So it still proceeds.
Yes, sir.
Time frame is stretching.
Yes, sir. No, actually, the board approved what we call a statement of legislative intent.
Yeah, we approved that.
Which gives us permission to work on it. So it's not being done blindly. It is moving forward. In the county, and you're right. I mean, we have the fire marshal present there. We've got every other discipline, even the garbage guys are there. So we do take a look and make sure that everything that it's designed to do is safe. Now, as far as the operations and how many personnel get assigned to that area, or what the impacts are for things like schools and the fire department or the sheriff's office, things of that nature. We do know what those impacts are going to be. We don't have rules that say, by the way, for the sheriff's office, you have to pay so much as an impact fee. And we do, by the way, collect a lot of the same taxes, as the commissioner said. For the fire guys, we actually do collect an impact fee.
An impact.
Yes, so an impact fee, for anybody who doesn't understand, an impact fee is to cover capital costs. So if a development comes in that would generate the need for fire station, so many lane miles of a road or mass transit requirements, we collect money from each and every unit for, we call it mobility, which are roads and mass transit. We collect it for parks, so that's some of the money that you've been getting for the fields. We collect it for emergency services, which right now is just fire, EMS, and then we collect it for the schools.
Nothing for security.
But nothing for the sheriff's office.
Not a
Shame
specific.
on city planners, really.
Well,
so that it's still through?
now, well, this happens over time. So
Should have happened in the beginning.
right now, I think we charge close to $21,000 per house before somebody even moves in for those impact fees.
Those are the part of the impact fees that
I'm
is
talking about
collected.
Margaritaville, that's gonna give us 6 to 9.
They are paying, and I think the impact fees they're paying, and we increased impact fees for new development.
Yeah.
So all new development is paying more than what they normally pay. If we wanna add an extra tax like the fire thing you're talking about, that would have to be approved with everyone.
Yeah, and you gotta understand, a lot of the requirements from the sheriff's office are these folks. So, literally.
88% of our budget goes to personnel.
Yeah, so that isn't covered by impact fees. That's covered by the operations, and your general fund budget at this point in time. So there's different ways to collect money. But oh, by the way, even though there's 6 to 9 million visitors coming in daily, you also have a huge real estate value coming in. So they'll be paying a lot of ad valorem taxes. So then it'll be up to, and usually you collect it like a year or two after their CO, because it takes a while for it to get on the tax rolls. At that time, we'll see if in fact the generated tax values will actually pay for enough for the sheriff's office.
So he hasn't asked a question yet.
No.
So I'm glad that we're talking about the topic of impact fees. Earlier this year, I think it was in March, there was potential discussion about the Margaritaville complex not having to pay the impact fees for schools. Can you provide an update on that at all? Was that approved, or did it get rejected by the board?
Well, that depends on what the use is.
Okay.
So if you're building a hotel, a commercial hotel, you don't pay the school impact fee.
But for, let me clarify, for short-term vacation rentals.
Right, so if you're actually putting in a rental unit, they have a formula that you would have to actually pay a rate for. They would have to go to the school district to get an exemption from paying that fee.
They go through the school district.
Right, and so typically if it's deed restricted 55 plus, no kids, the school district will give you like an exemption. But other than that, it may not be the full price for a single family unit or an apartment, but it's some percentage of that they have an actual fee for. And it's based on the number of kids that it's generated. So the impact fees are based on, if you build it, and say I build 100 units and normally I would generate 40 kids, but short-term rental only generates 20, then you pay a little bit less than what the normal would be. But it's all based on what they actually generate. Hopefully that wasn't too.
Did you have a question? Oh, you did, okay. Sorry.
Let me follow up with that, because I heard the same thing that this gentleman did. And I thought it was new legislation being considered to exempt more units that are vacation rentals, condos, and so on, and that was under consideration by the commission.
They were asking for some consideration. The school district did a study, and then they established fees based on that. So I think they gave them a discount based on what was actually being generated. I don't think they waived it.
Okay, so they got a reduction.
Yeah, they got a reduction based on what they actually generate.
So we're looking to try to find more funding for security, and we just reduced our school funding.
Yeah, but the school impact fees is that are generated. It has nothing to do with the need for the sheriff's office.
Understand.
Margaritaville's a very weird beast, number one, because it's not just short-term rentals. It is permanent, full-time living. It has short-term rentals. There's about 7 different things going on there. So that's one of the things when we went out to meet with them, we were like, that brings a whole other group of issues and things that come along with it. So they're paying, from what we understand, they're paying most of the normal fees, because that's one of the things we asked. We want to make sure they weren't sliding in under the radar as a short-term rental, and then next thing you know, there's permanent residents living there with 30 people in a house.
They've got to meet qualifications also when they say short-term rentals. They go through the school district, they've got to approve certain heights, certain things like that. They're not going to have, like a senior living facility. And the school district reviews it, then decides